Hey everyone, this is Carbonite bringing you yet another standard match. Today we have Julio playing Granfia once again. We still have yet to actually see his deck profile, and unfortunately I don't think we should hold our breaths for getting it. But anyways, we are going to see him going off against Messiah, which is going to be on the right. Definitely one of the better decks of the format. I don't know if it's really a top deck. I think it just has way too many issues. It definitely has a very high ceiling, but honestly, just like not having any early game really hurts the deck and is really the death of it. And we're probably going to be seeing something to that effect, considering Granfia is, as I've been calling it for a while, a very much a glass cannon kind of deck, where it kind of pushes very quickly, very early, and very fast, which is definitely the exact opposite of what Messiah wants to be doing. We are going to be seeing the mushrooms come down, calling down a full column of tokens, letting us get essentially a free 10k swing for committing one card, which is why mushrooms is just such a good card. Going to be swinging the Vanguard in, just going to be 15k guarding it, which is pretty understandable. Honestly, against when you're playing Messiah, you really hate it when people rush you. Looks like we are going for a little bit of our own counter rush. Going to be swinging with that Vanguard boosted by that cat. I believe this Messiah build is actually just the straight from the box kind of Messiah build, so I don't think there are any new cards added like Makani's or like cycle cards like I have in my deck profile. So if you see just like some weird cards in the deck, I believe it is because of that. We are seeing the Kiner used, checking the top 3, and I believe we do hit that Sacrifice Messiah, which is interesting. I will say that I think I said in my deck profile that's one of the reasons why I do use I might use Kiner in the early game and actually proc skill instead of just using an attacker. We do actually see the cats going into the soul, which allow them to go into the soul from rearguard circle if a card is unlocked, which was obviously procced by that Kiner. Definitely an interesting play, considering that those cats are 10k shield, and honestly you'd probably rather have the shield value than like early game pressure. Even though Granfia is a deck that kind of pushes pretty hard, I think that if you just survive the early game against Granfia, playing Messiah, you have the ability to scale so high during your stride turns that you can probably close out the Granfia pretty easily. We are seeing just no guards for these two attacks, thankfully hitting a heal trigger and healing down to 2, which is going to be pretty helpful going into this next turn. So unfortunately we did go first, which is also not what Messiah wants to be doing. Looks like we probably are just going to be riding into the Messiah, probably not doing too much else after that. Honestly, we've been committing a lot of cards to board and to guard. We are already at 2, but looks like we are actually going to be calling a full board here, which I think is just a little bit of a mistake, because by putting those units on board when their skills are not even active yet, it really just opens them up to being retired or attacked into, and those are super critical pieces that you want to be having during your stride turns. And if they get wiped out, the less pieces you have, the less you're going to be able to actually do. But we do see a crit coming down from the Vanguard swing, and unfortunately hitting into a defensive, meaning that since we don't actually get the 5k because we're not at GB1, we're going to be swinging 18 at a token, which is essentially just empty value because we effectively got the token for nothing. But we are swinging the 28 at the 20k Vanguard. Gonna be opting to take it, actually hitting into a heal trigger, which is very nice, getting us to heal back down to 3, which is going to pass the Messiah's turn. Going to be drawing for the turn. Obviously don't have to discard since we have the grade 1 and a plant token on board and in soul respectively. Just getting that free ride into the Granfia, and now it is looking like we will be able to kind of honestly just push at least 2 damage, I think, this turn, with the Granfia attack being super massive and then the restand also being pretty massive in its own right. Depending on how or what rears we call, we're probably going to be pushing a lot of damage this turn. So just opening up that Noble Rose token with the 2 plant gauges, we do actually theoretically have enough to already restand, because you can send the Noble Rose token as well as the gauges, but probably not going to want to do that because it is soul and you can use soul for other things. You would rather not have to use your soul to generate that Noble Rose token. But it looks like we are actually getting a little bit more soul with a new card from BT10, that little lemon dude, which actually I think his name is like Citron or something. But anyways, when he's placed, if you have a grade 0 rearguard guard, you can actually soul charge 1, and then your grade 0 gets a plus 5k. And we are seeing the what's that card called? The the drive plus 1/1. It's gonna come to me later, but we are gonna be seeing it there. We are using the Darien skill to put another plant gauge, so we do have the 3 plant gauge that we need minimum to restand. So looks like we're gonna be actually starting off with just the citrus at the actual arrestor messiah. Kind of just getting rid of it. Honestly, like what I was talking about, you shouldn't have called that down, because now you just lost one of your best pieces. Swinging the Vanguard for 38, probably not guarding it, obviously, because that is a really big number. Going to be getting a critical trigger on the second check. What was that first? It doesn't matter. Anyways, we're pushing 2 damage, hitting into a heal that is not going to proc, but we do get the defensive power. So this Granfia rearguard is going to be able to hit, and then by pitching the 3, we are going to be restanding the citrus with an extra 15. So I believe that makes it 23. So both of these attacks will theoretically be able to hit, but looks like we're going to be aiming for the arrestor messiah, knowing how vital of a piece it is, and then just swinging the last Granfia at the Vanguard, just going to be blocked for a 10k guard. And once again, we do see, I think I said this in the deck profile as well with Granfia, where persona rides really aren't that good, and a lot of the time you end up just calling them down to be beat sticks, because Granfia already makes a whole ton of advantage, or not advantage, it generates just like a bunch of raw power just by doing its thing. So honestly, like persona ride an extra 10k half of the time doesn't really even matter as much. But looks like Messiah is actually not going to be striding here. Probably didn't have the stride fodder. Another reason to probably have kept those arresters in hand. Even if you had to discard them for the stride cost, it really would have just been worth it to keep it in order to do that. But it looks like we're going to be hitting for a 2 to pass, which is going to be met by a front trigger followed up by a critical trigger. So the damage is actually going to be pushed through, pushing us the Granfia to 5. However, I believe we did get a single defensive, if I'm correct. So these sacrifices are only going to be at 18. So I'm going to just clean up the rear guards. Obviously not going to be guarding them, because in Granfia you can't really afford to give shield value to your rear guards. And besides, you are playing Soikeia, so you have a fair amount of revival. So it doesn't really matter that much if your stuff gets killed. Oh, I just remembered what that order's name is called, the triple drive one. It's called Gather Upon Me, Ye Wandering Souls. And of course, I always remember it's just like too late, because I don't think we're going to be seeing it this turn. But what we are going to be seeing is the mushroom called down and actually slid into soul. And I think we might have messed up a little bit on the ordering, because mushroom does give an extra 5k when you're playing Granfia. And it looks like we ended up using up on the Darien, which I think we would have rather had that 5k given to at least the Citron, which we see coming down, because that means it could theoretically be swinging unboosted at the Vanguard for 13. And I think that since the front row is the one that's going to be attacking, you get more value out of it by giving it the 5k. But you know, just a small error there. If we had given it to the Citron, we would have been able to swing a little bit better. But anyway, we are still just swinging for a massive 38 Granfia at the Vanguard, which is a very dicey situation. Looks like we only have 4 cards left in hand, so either we take this and risk the crit, or we commit a lot of cards from hand, which looks like we are going to opt to do that, guarding for a 45k shield, which I believe is going to be a no pass. So kind of just ensuring our survival there. But at the same time, if we do hit, yeah, it's a 2 to pass, but if we do hit a critical trigger there, it's honestly over anyway, because we have no way of guarding that last attack unless this final card in hand is a PG. And then in that case, it's terrible too, because now you have no grades, so you can't even stride. I guess that's probably why we didn't stride last turn, because we probably had a hand that was full of grade 0s, although 2 of those were from the drive tracks last turn, so who knows. I can't really say too much, but it looks like we're deciding on whether we want to just pitch the 3 gauges or we want to go for the extra 4th. I think that the correct play was to definitely just pitch the gauges and not get the extra power, even though we would have been swinging for 46, especially since this attack is not lethal. We're just pushing them to 5, so either you just swing at the Vanguard or you could swing at the rear guard. Although at this point, if your opponent still hasn't stridden yet, what's the word? Strode? I don't know. Anyways, but looks like unfortunately missing stride again. So yeah, definitely not a great showing for the Messiah player. Getting into a drive checking 2 blanks and then having to swing the sacrifice at the lemon once again, and it's honestly looking like it's GG's here. We have a no shield card in hand and a 5k guard in addition to 2 unknowns, so we have to guard really big swings here unless we have like double PG in hand. Realistically, we're not really going to be surviving a Granfia turn, especially with the Elena coming down, counterblasting 1 and soul blasting 1, and letting us revive anything from the drop zone, which looks like it is going to be that Orangine, I forget what I always call it. And I think we have a little bit of an error with the plant gauge, if I'm mistaken, because I think we should only have 1 from the orange, and then at the start of the battle phase, Darien and the orange give it another one, which puts us at 3 gauge, but it doesn't really matter because this is pretty much the end of the game. Swinging with the boosting Darien for an 18, and then swinging the Vanguard with the 3 plant gauges is going to be a 33. No, it should actually be a 38. I think that's a little bit of a mistake on my part because it does have 3 plant gauges, so it's essentially plus 20. No, it is plus 20k, so it is a just 33, but it doesn't really matter because that is going to be the end of the match. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Kind of sad showing for Messiah. Sorry to all the Messiah fans out there, but a good showing for Granfia. Anyways, don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.